Hey everybody, welcome to David's Life and Observation with your host, David Welch. So today, we definitely need to make an observation that I was motherfucking right, and they are going to charge the officer in Atlanta with murder, felony murder. Um, It'll probably get bumped down to manslaughter, but at least the charge is there. Whether or not there's going to be a fucking conviction, um, well, there probably won't be a conviction. There's probably going to be a deal. Or if it does go to trial, I don't see them convicting. Because generally, you got to move heaven and earth to convict an officer of anything these days, even if it's caught on camera and it's blatant. But anyways, so people so far have, well, the government in small amounts have woken the sleeping giant of the people. The next phase is not just voting on the next president, but getting all of the members of Congress to do a fucking line switch. You have dinosaurs in Congress who've been in Congress for, 25 plus years. Get them out. Vote them out. I don't care how long they've been there. I don't care how cool their policies may seem to you. They're dinosaurs. They don't need to be there. They don't deserve to be there. They're quite frankly going into Congress as, I wouldn't say poor people are paupers, because they're not. A lot of people are businessmen, or they were business people before they got into Congress, but they're leaving multimillionaires. So we need to, end the congressional or the ability to buy congressmen. Two, we also need to remove leadership. We need to do a full fucking change up. Get younger people in there, and it can still be competitively. It can still be competitive ideologically. Put some diehard Republicans in there, some libertarians. Just get people in there who have and share the same ideals as their community, and not just that, but stand on their own platform. Like, even if I didn't agree with someone who was maybe a different, so you give them a different letter, so what? You give them an R, but if I agree at, I would say 95% of their positions, I would still disagree with the 5% of their positions, but the 95% I do agree with, yeah, put them in there, see what they can do, see if they can't make that 95% of their platform happen. Whether it's, and things, we're doing actually wonderful things now. Like, there's a lot of motivated people out there right now making huge changes, that topic of defunding the police is huge right now, but, does that mean abolition of the police? For some people, it does. I can see that camp making sense, sort of. But then again, I also see the camp of people who say defund the police and reallocate funds to, do other things within the, add another service maybe, because we have, instead of dialing 911 for someone who's having a mental health breakdown, or instead of dialing 911 for everything under the sun, we just get different type of, community leaders out there, community members within law enforcement. Or, policing also should be required severe, like actually more training. So instead of, defunding the police, something Jocko Willink said on Joe Rogan made a whole lot of sense to me. No, go the other direction. Fund them, actually. Give them more resources. Like, so if you had like a CRT member with every patrol officer, that would help, and make that CRT person maybe someone who is, maybe a professional counselor. Maybe they can add that, specialty to, a master's of professional counseling degree or make it its own, specialty where you actually make assessments in real time. And you deal with people and be able to recognize people who are in a true mental breakdown, or people who are making frivolous calls too. And we always see the argument of, oh, let's just go ahead and err on the side of caution. No, people have rights. And that's one thing that's gotten law enforcement in huge trouble lately, is they don't realize that people have rights. They don't either care that they have rights, and they're trained to see every human being as a nail and that they're the hammer. When you're trained like that, your mentality is that. And something Jocko said again, like, if that is your battle standard for so long and you're day in and day out, and then two, part of that funding is, and I do understand, after an officer involved shooting, you do like, paid leave. I get that, but I'm also in the camp of, hey, you have, maybe it should be, half the year. Like I know people need to work and make money, but I think affording our law enforcement personnel a little bit more time off too, as and then still compensating them sufficiently, and making it go another direction, because it didn't really occur to me that it was, and it did occur to me. I've always said that law enforcement needs, you should need at least a bachelor's degree. You should need insurance to be a police officer. Instead of the people being held liable all the time, they carry insurance for that they pay into, that they invest into, and then if that's not enough to cover the damages of the loss, then it's got to go even further than that, and property needs to be taken. But I'm also in the camp of, hey, like if you're giving officers, and requiring more schooling, make sure that's the requirement. You're going to get better people in there. You're not going to just have an asshole who comes out of a 3 month, even if it is 3 months, I don't even think it's 3 months, or a 3 month or 2 month academy, thinking they're hot shit. And we do understand that there is also a trial period. Like these officers go out with like a senior officer, but if that senior officer is corrupt as fuck, that creates a problem, because all that does is breed more shitty cops. And if that person is a training officer who trains, all of the rookies coming in, pretty soon all the veterans who are actually doing the job correctly get replaced by these assholes that aren't. And that's a problem. Because you run into situations where you got these rookie cops doing things that are just extra, and they don't realize or don't care that people's lives are in jeopardy every time a cop gets out of their car. Every time you have an interaction with law enforcement, your life is literally in danger at that point. It's true. Like, okay, even if it's a traffic stop, like, hey, oh yeah, like this officer got out of the vehicle. Is he having a bad day? Is this guy having, is this man or woman, did they just break up with their girlfriend? Did they just have a horrific scene they just came from? What is the case? They need to be able to make audibles in real time and say, you know what, I need to come off. Like, hey, Sarge, man, I won't be able to make it tonight, man. Like, I just came from this horrific scene. I'm not right. Hey, you need to be able to make an audible. And you need to be able to call someone up from like a roster and say, hey, you're in, tag, you're it. Somebody needs to finish this shift, or somebody cover down, or whatever have you. Or just have an abundance of officers, and that's where that funding part comes in. Have an abundance where you can cover down. Have somebody on call where you can do that. And I'm pretty sure there are departments out there already doing that, but they're also pretty much spread thin as well. So sometimes it is a matter of bodies. Sometimes it is a matter of proper training. Because we're not saying that officers don't train, because that's always the number one recommendation in any case I've ever heard is more training, more training, more training. And you get these officers who sign off on training all the time. Whether or not they actually attend, that's another thing. But accountability is the big factor. And it's not just happening, and it shouldn't just happen to law enforcement. It should happen with city councils. It should happen with, government entities at a much higher level. And that's where we're seeing the buck stop. The buck stops like at the local police or the local sheriff, but you don't realize that corruption is deeply rooted. And we see city employees on film all the time treating people horribly, and they're not fired, or they're getting away with it. And it's like, are you kidding me? You work for the people. I don't care if you're a dispatcher. I don't care if you're a front desk lady. I don't care if you're working security at a building that is a government funded building. And this is one thing that drives me absolutely bonkers. And this is something that they need to teach private security firms like Allied Universal or Securitas or a myriad of the other ones that are out there, and there are a lot of them. Go as far as teaching your people the law, because there's situations where They don't understand that they're infringing upon people's rights. And if you can't expect a security officer to, have that information or be readily available to, understand that somebody's within the scope of their ability within the law and not call law enforcement, that would mitigate the cost of sending a patrol, or that would mitigate the cost of calling law enforcement to a situation that doesn't need to be. And there needs to be a Karen law. Like, I don't know why this isn't a thing already. And it is. It's already in play, but it's not enforced heavily, and it should be. Where, if someone makes the malicious call to law enforcement with the purposes of getting someone injured or getting them removed from public property if they're not violating the law, or if it's for a malicious purpose just because you don't like what they're doing, that person, that business should be fined extremely heavily. I'm talking like, could you imagine the Karen's face when you drop a 5G fine on them? Like, they would never do that shit again a day in their life. A business, every time if it's a business, every time they make a call and it's a Karen call and the police are there and can't do anything about the situation because people aren't breaking the law, then that Karen law should come into effect, and that business should be taking at least a 10G hit. Individual person, 5Gs. Business, 10, 12Gs, whatever you want to make it. It would mitigate the need for a call. And if you're a business and you don't have security personnel there that know the law, we need to get back into the high schools and teach civics and teach government. We're always sprinkling just kind of a cursory knowledge, like, oh, here's your Bill of Rights, but don't ever ask about them. Don't ever understand a scenario in which they're going to be used or understood, and don't dare ask about case law unless it's like Miranda, or if it's Roe v. Wade. If it's not one of the big cases that would kind of set the tone for what we've known as kind of the government big cases, even smaller cases, like Glick v. Kniff, or just a couple that are out there, they need to be taught in class, especially local ones. If you were to teach local case law, to students that are in high school, they'd understand how their statutes are understood. Because here's the thing law enforcement tells us all the fucking time that we can't use in court against them. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, but it is the excuse for law enforcement because they don't have enough training. Why is there the double standard? If there's the double standard of, hey, how the fuck can a citizen be expected to follow the laws all the time and expect to know it because the ordinances are published? Then every officer should absolutely be able to follow the law because the Bill of Rights has kind of been there for a long fucking time, dumbasses, and so is the Constitution and the amendments that go with it. So that excuse of, well, I didn't know, does not fucking compute, assholes. Going back to what I was saying earlier. The defund the police camp, and with the whole anarchy of getting rid of the police in general, that's not going to fit most people. I can understand it, but it's not going to fit what works within our confines of society. What is realistic, though, is reallocating funds to different resources, or giving them actually more money to have no excuse for the lack of training, and have the expectation to be a law enforcement officer be much higher, much more scrutinized. I mean, because it's always funny to me. Plumbers, service people who work in the handiwork services, professional counselors, accountants, all of them require certification or licensure, which you do have the post-certification with law enforcement, but it's not enough. So the certification needs to carry with it more certifications, an expectation to have at least an undergraduate degree under your belt, and to have the expectation of, hey, reframing the training from warrior training to de-escalation, to, hey, we need to call, backup, instead of chasing a guy down in a Wendy's parking lot or whatever the fuck it was and shooting a man in the back, which I fucking knew what the verdict was going to be, or what at least the charge was going to be. I knew there was going to be a charge. People were fucking naysaying, like, no, no, no. Like, hey, like, yeah, that's murder. Once he turned and fired the taser, and there's no more charge in that thing, it's a less than lethal, or apparently, according to law enforcement, or those law enforcement bootlickers out there, apparently it's only lethal in the hands of somebody who's not a cop. Apparently. And then there's the argument of, oh, he aimed for his head. No. It turned and blind fired. He turned it, like, you don't have time to sit there and aim for the head. He didn't do that. Now, if he had been 40 feet away and aimed for the head of the officer, I get that a little bit. But then the range of that thing is only 30 fucking feet. Even the officer grade ones are like, 30, 40 feet, if that. And it fires 2 fucking prongs, and then you got to load another cartridge. That's how the fuck that one works, guys. You can't just go bzz, bzz, keep firing fucking taser rounds at people. It doesn't work that way, morons. So for that camp that was like, oh, well, he tried to shoot the officer. Like, no, he didn't try to shoot him with anything that was considered a lethal weapon. It's a less than lethal weapon. So you've learned your lesson, laddie. You've just learned your lesson. And he still is going to catch the charge, hopefully. Now, he did catch the charge. He got the felony murder charge. But I doubt there will be a conviction. That's just calling it what it is. Now, if there is a conviction, it's because of the amount of public scrutiny and pressure that yields a conviction. Does the family need to be compensated for their loss? I believe so. Especially if they come to a deal, that needs to be a public deal. That needs to be public knowledge. Not exactly the disclosed amount of the money. That to me, I don't care about. Just the fact that the family seeks justice. And here's what we're not talking about in the news. We're not talking about Breonna Taylor and those Brianna, I can't remember the exact way it's done. But regardless, those officers need to be prosecuted as well for murder. Because that's what they did. No-knock raids need to be abolished. Cops walking around in civilian clothes. Dumb. I get undercover. If you're infiltrating something or you're undercover, I get it. But there are gangs of plainclothes street officers in New York, New Jersey, Philly, all these major cities where these guys are committing big fucking crimes on video, and they're not getting caught up because they're in plain clothes, and oftentimes they're like, how scary was it in San Diego where a girl got stopped for literally no fucking reason? No reason. And she's dragged off by people who are in a non-marked unit who claim to be law enforcement officers who threaten to shoot people that follow them. Like, nah, like, you're kidnapping my wife, my sibling, my whatever. Yo, you are going to get followed and fucked off. Like, Christopher Dorner time. I'm sorry, but you've crossed the threshold. When it comes to people like Christopher Dorner or the Boogaloo guy that was recently caught, I'm all for these guys. I am. Like, I'm sorry, but cops created the monster. The government created the monster. You created people who stand on their oath, who stand on their conviction, and there's this crying out that, oh, these guys went and to go kill cops. Yes, they went to go kill cops because cops are terrorists in their eyes. You train a guy for so long in the military to see people that are doing corrupt shit as a terrorist, they're going to want to go engage the terrorist. It all comes down to accountability. If these cops were being held accountable for their actions, you wouldn't have these Boogaloo guys who think the government's, they have to overthrow the government or they have to fight the government. Like, all these Rambos that are coming out of the woodworks are coming out of the woodworks because of you fuckers. And by you fuckers, I mean law enforcement or government officials who are also not being held accountable. Like, if you really want to Boogaloo some shit, start Boogalooing these fucking judges, the prosecutors, and please, can we please have a movement to abolish CPS and family court? Or at the very least, make CPS a more funded entity just like law enforcement. And here's what you do. You make sure that there are counselors on scene or an MD. Like if you have, just imagine a kind of a residency or a doctor position, or at least a master of, what do they call it? A nurse practitioner or something out there to recognize actual abuse and actual like problems, not these, CPS workers who repeatedly lie to the parents of the kids and who repeatedly lie to government entities and medical staff in order to have children ripped from the arms of loving parents. And then the judges and the lawyers in the CPS system are literally the most corrupt in the world. I've never seen anything so heinous in my life. Like, it is a lose-lose bet for anyone that doesn't automatically have $10, $15, even $20,000 to spare to hire an attorney to go get their kids back, because it's a money game. Kids, so what happens is, and I think it's strategic, there are people out there that find young couples or couples with young children, ages, 1 to 5 or, 1 to 7. And they make this heinous judgment call where like, oh, well, you're a bad father or you're a bad mother. And then they call CPS for something that they don't even have all the information of, right? So they make a call to CPS. Or they make a call to CPS and the CPS worker gets there and they're like, nah, the Karen law should apply to that motherfucker too. Like if someone's going to call CPS maliciously, and it's been proven that it is a malicious call, or it's been proven that, hey, the call you made was unfounded, 1, and then 2, there are, several witnesses or video or something to contradict your claim, then you need to be fined heavily or jailed. Like, you're going to ruin the lives of parents and people and kids because you're going to call because you don't like the person that lives across from you. You don't like the fact that your grandma, you don't get to see the kids because both parents don't like you. Or, you're a relative who's like, oh, well, I'm going to call, on so-and-so because I heard a story 2 years ago that you were a bad dad. Like, that shit happens. And when it does, those people should go to prison. I would say even much so just like a rape allegation. If a rape allegation is found to be untrue and found to be, categorically fucking false and damaging to the person, and then let's say that cat that got convicted spent 6 years in prison, was a young man, spent 6 years in prison, and then all the girls recanted after 6 years. Yo, you bitches deserve jail. Y'all deserve like prison time. You deserve to take the 6 years or the entire sentence that guy was gonna serve for the rape that never fucking happened in the life you fucking ruined. There needs to be heavy penalties for that shit. And cops and detectives and lawyers and judges need to lose qualified immunity. Period. I don't know why the Supreme Court struck down the cases, and I kind of guess because it would create a major clusterfuck in the court system. The only reason that I can see the Supreme Court saying, nah, right now, player, is because it would be so fucking damaging to every police station. And something I heard on Joe Rogan podcast with Jocko that I think is bullshit, and I'm sorry, Jocko, but I think you're just misinformed on this one, that the majority of complaints that are filed happens to be other officers. Well, partly true, but the reason the complaints don't get filed is because a lot of the times you don't even get an opportunity to file an actual complaint. What they do at a lot of departments, at a ton of departments out there, is they say, you know what? Let me go ahead and let you speak to my LT or my sergeant. Let me go get that person. So you have a conversation. They take some notes on a notepad. They don't record it. And you're not given the opportunity to have any feedback either, which is bullshit. Like, if you file a complaint, you should be able to know, like, relatively soon whether it was sustained or whether, and then what was the result. And then if you file a complaint, like in the state of Texas with Copper's Cove, you stupid motherfuckers, if you file a complaint and the department deems it that, hey, there's no merit to the complaint, but you file a lawsuit and then they lose the lawsuit, that department chief, fired. The internal investigations people, fired. The cop that did the assault or whatever the heck it was, or the false arrest or whatever, fired immediately. And not only that, they should get prison time for falsifying and because look at the stupid situation we're in all the time. Look at the situation. We have a situation where departments and the FBI and the ATF and all these other fucking government entities, well, we're going to investigate ourselves and find that we didn't do anything wrong yet. Where's the accountability? Where the fuck is the accountability? You've woken the sleeping giant. It's gonna come. And the Supreme Court, you guys can't hide. You guys think you're immune to the people? You think you're immune to the rage of the people? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, you think we're just going to let the whole qualified immunity thing go? No. We're going to have cases go up constantly. And if you want to reject them, great. That's fantastic. Because those Boogaloo motherfuckers you guys are afraid of, FBI, they're going to come out of the woodworks and they're going to figure it out. They're going to figure out one day, they're going to be like, you know what? If I start whacking the Supreme Court justices, maybe, just maybe, they'll side on the side of the people. Just maybe. Or, hey, if I start taking out, cops in droves, or FBI agents in droves, or CIA agents in droves, and I, take out, all these government entities, which the people can and will do. If you think civil war can happen in this country, you are woefully fucking mistaken. But the problem is there not going to be clear ideological lines. Like, I don't even think there were clear ideological lines in the first civil war that happened. I think a lot of people were either conscripted or just kind of caught in the mix. And then they're given their version of the information, and that's it. So people who fought for the South, who are proud of their Southern heritage, I almost understand them. Because I can't even conceive with how information is handled that everybody exactly knew what the fuck they were fighting for. Especially back then. I just don't see it. As much as you get guys in Iraq and Afghanistan now who are like, yo, where are the WMDs? Like, you got guys out there that are just like, damn, I'm going to collect me a paycheck and, go home and go to college. You got guys out there that are like, man, I'm going to go kick in doors and fuck people up. And then you got people that are like, wait a minute, the fuck are we doing out here? So it takes a very analytical and very conscious person and somebody who, quite frankly, is between the age of 17 and, let's say, 23. They're going to be extremely smart, intelligent individuals. But are they going to be as cognizant to ask the questions of, like, what the fuck are we doing out here? Unless it's already in a crazy situation, probably fucking not. Because they're going to say, you know what, hey, what are we doing out here? What led us to be out here? And who the fuck is giving orders? Like, that was the question asked by, a lot of people in the leadership ranks who are very intelligent individuals who sat down and said, you know what, we haven't found single WMDs. We're attacking villages. And then we come to find out 9/11 wasn't even perpetrated by the motherfucking Iraqis. Had nothing to do with the shit. And then you have people who, we went into Afghanistan, and I still can't for the life of me think of motherfucking why. Like, why was Afghanistan even a fucking thing? Well, because the Taliban's hiding in Afghanistan. Now it's the Taliban's hiding up north, and they're hiding in Iran, and they're hiding here. Like, get the fuck out of here. You just want to fuck up the whole Middle East and keep that fight going for another 1,000 fucking years for no reason. Sorry, guys, I get worked up. It's a lot going on. But, so thank you for tuning in to David's Life and Observation. Please make some semblance of an understanding from this rant. Let's recap a little bit. So the first thing I talked about was Rashad Brooks. The officer involved in killing him did receive a felony murder charge. That is a plus. Will he get convicted? Probably not. And then, I kind of went into kind of the dynamics of why people are mad at law enforcement. I went into a little bit about the Boogaloo guys. So, as you're watching this, understand that my brain wants to get out so much information that my mouth couldn't keep up to my brain. So what came out was kind of a hodgepodge of multiple things. So, have a great day. Be calm. Talk about defunding or even adding more resources to the police, and really think about what direction you want this entire country to go. And then if you're mad at the angry people mob, understand that it's your leadership and people in government positions that are making this shit infuriatingly maddening, with one, the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of laws that are on the books, and then two, the fact that there's no accountability. Again, we're going to circle back to that. So for those who are for accountability, move forward.